Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. My dad passed away in October, and the executor of my 30-male dad's will, my older half-brother, told me that my dad's only beneficiaries would be the 3 sons who carry his last name and his daughter. I ended up getting into a pretty heated argument with him. To give some family background, my dad, a divorced American man with 4 children, had me with my Irish mum. Their relationship turned sour before my birth, and my mum ended up going back to Limerick to give birth to me, and she gave me her own last name. My dad had to establish his paternity and work out custody from overseas. At one point, he was flying to and from Ireland to see me 3 days a week for a 6-month period. There's been a lot of bad blood between my parents, and my dad has wanted me to take his last name as an adult, which I did not end up doing for a number of reasons. I don't think my brother is lying about me being disinherited, but I also don't believe my father would disinherit me for that reason. I don't believe he was of sound mind when he made this will. My father had stage 3B lung cancer for the last 5 years of his life. He died of some sort of saprophytic infection in a collapsed lung, which was misdiagnosed as tuberculosis. At the end of his life, he was very confused and did not even remember his own children at times. He was living with another one of my brothers at the time, who was also managing his multifamily rentals, and I suspect that they may have been unduly influencing him to disinherit me. My father disinheriting me means that each of my 4 siblings receive around $800,000 more in liquid cash than they would have received if I was included. And that's not even counting his properties. My dad also owned a couple of acres in a rural valley in western Norway, right in between the mountains. We had a cottage and outdoor sauna there that we would go to every summer and winter in my childhood. It's my favorite place in the world. I was supposed to inherit that place, but according to his will, I won't. I honestly don't care as much about the money as I do about the fact that I might never see that place again. I intend to sue on the basis that my father wasn't of sound mind when he made the will, and that my siblings may have been manipulating him. Am I the a-hole? Info. What was your relationship with your father for the 10 years leading up to his death? How frequently did you visit? How often did you speak to one another? For what reasons, other than blood relation, do you feel entitled to an inheritance? We talked all the time. I actually live in the U.S. now, and I was working for the Department of Veterans Affairs. Since it is my first year, I had limited options in terms of taking time off, but I still took a family medical leave to visit my father. My dad and I were very close. We had a loving relationship. There's no way he would disinherit me. Not the a-hole. Do what you have to do when it comes to money and property. If you and your dad had a good relationship prior to his death, gather everything you can to prove it. Phone records, texts, letters, etc. Get ready for a fight and file as soon as possible. My 30 female mom was cheated on by my dad, and the lady my dad cheated with got pregnant, and my dad decided to leave my mom for her. Their kid is now 17 male. I'm gonna call him Luke. My mom does not like Luke or my dad or Luke's mom. I'm not close to any of them either. I despise my stepmother, and I hated my dad for a long time too, but our relationship has improved. I barely have a relationship with Luke, but that's improving too. One thing my mom believes in is karma, or at least her definition of it. Ever since the day she found out my dad cheated, she's been telling me about how karma will get him and the other woman back, disguised as Luke. Something happened to Luke a couple years ago. My mom called it karma. This was disgusting to me. While I usually just let my mom say whatever because she's been through a lot, I draw the line at her calling my half-brother's trauma karma. Instead of just minding her own business, my mom told everyone and their moms about how this was karma getting them back. We had a massive fight about it and didn't talk for months, but she eventually apologized. I've been spending some time with Luke because my dad said he's been feeling a bit down since he broke up with his girlfriend, and I wanted to catch up. My mom doesn't like it, but keeps her mouth shut. Anyways, I was staying the night at my mom's house for reasons and was FaceTiming my husband in my room. I told him how Luke's actually a really fun kid to be around and that I'm very glad he's been able to rise above everything that's happened to him. I then said he's been through a lot. The second I said that, I heard a sound outside my door, hung up, then found my mom listening. I asked her what the duck she was doing, and she immediately said, "You shouldn't care this much. Hate to say it, but this is just karma at work. I doubt this is the last struggle he'll have to deal with. Karma's unforgiving like that." I was honestly mostly really disappointed. I ended up yelling though and told her to shut the duck up about her stupid ducking karma and move on. It's been 17 years. She sounds insane. My mom was all like, "How could you say that? You know what I've had to deal with. Are you betraying me too?" I just rolled my eyes at her and walked into my room. She began to yell at me through the door saying I broke her heart and how I'm being incredibly cruel, etc. She didn't talk to me the next morning and looked as if she cried all night. My older sister says that I should apologize and that I should be kinder, but I don't know. Am I the a-hole here? Edit. I'm 30 years old. My dad and mom are both the same age and 50 plus. My dad married his affair partner, who was also 50 plus, and had my brother, who was 17 years old. Not the a-hole. The level of vitriol your mother has for your stepbrother is alarming. He had nothing to do with your father's decision to cheat, and celebrating his misfortunes as karma is not acceptable. So my 26 female parents, both 50, got married when I was 5, and I was the flower girl. Around when I was 10, they got divorced, which no one saw coming because they never fought. I feel like I have to mention my parents are both very wealthy and kept finances separate, and so it was an easy divorce, and obviously they could pay for it. When I was about 17-ish, they decided to get back together. Me being 17 was overjoyed and was a bridesmaid at their second wedding. I really hope you see where this is going, but they ended up separating again. They didn't tell anyone and didn't get a divorce, but we all knew they were separated, and 3 years later, they wanted to renew their vows, in which I was asked to buy a nice dress for the occasion. Surprise, they got divorced, again, and only after 3 months after their renewal. After that, I sort of just lived my own life because I wasn't exactly thrilled at whatever they were doing, and honestly really over it. So, a few days ago, I got an invite in the mail to my parents' third or fourth wedding after 6 years, and so I called my mom about it. She was super excited and told me I was old enough to be her maid of honor and that she wants me to buy a $1,500 dress. That's a solid no for me. I told her I'd be her maid of honor, but I'm either going to wear the original bridesmaid dress, which is a cream color, or the other nice one I got, which is brown, because I'm not buying a $1,500 dress. She freaked out and told me that those don't match the color scheme, pink and green, and that she knows I can afford it. Which is true. I got an inheritance from my grandfather's passing. However, when my fiancé and I moved in together, he made clear that he didn't want me to be paying for most things, and he wants to do it 50-50. So we got a small apartment that he could afford to pay his share of, and all of my extra money is in savings, college fund, because we wanted a large family of 5 to 7 kids, and they are, well, expensive. So I reminded my mom of that, and told her that I also would like to use my money on other things that wouldn't be worn once, and I'll have to buy a new one every 3 to 6 years. My mom called me a spoiled brat, and that I'm wasting my privilege. I have no words, and that I'm telling her I won't be a part of my own parents' wedding. I told her that I was going to be willing to show up to the wedding and not be the maid of honor, but at this point, I'm not showing up at all, and told her to call me when they get their next divorce. I hung up and got a slew of nasty emails from my family throughout the day, and my friends are divided on if I made the right call with the premise that they are my parents. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. I'm sorry, but once it's the third, fourth time to the same person, it's no longer a special event or moment. That's just a massive display of stupidity. It's totally reasonable that if they are doing this every 5 years or so, to say that either they really should not be together or that they really want the attention. Though to me, this situation reads as two people who are not compatible, but can't stand not having someone to give them attention. If she lets you go, I recommend a book on divorce as a wedding gift. I think they need it. I, female 34, have met my now husband, male 35, when we were in uni. We've been together for 14 years at this point. We moved in together quickly, only after going out for a few months, and after the honeymoon period was over, we realized that we're not compatible sleepers. We were happy as a couple, but our sleeping habits and preferences really didn't match. He likes scratchy blankets, when I like soft fabrics. He snores loudly, and it wakes me up. He moves a lot. He makes my bed too hot. My duvet was too thick for him, and so on and so forth. We tried compromises such as separate duvets, etc., and they did work a bit, but were not ideal. So eventually, the next house we rented had 2 bedrooms, and it worked like a charm. We could pick whatever bedding we wanted. We weren't disturbed in our sleep, and overall had better sleep quality. Sure, if one of us felt the need for cuddles, we still would occasionally sleep in the same bed, but majority of nights were slept separately, and we were better than ever. When we bought our house, we made sure each of us could have our own bedroom, and we did what we wanted with them. It really works wonderfully for us and makes us happier as a couple. On Friday, I was out on Christmas dinner with my coworkers. It wasn't anything fancy, and after that we went out to a pub for a few drinks, and some of my coworkers invited their partners as well. My coworker, work friend Susie, her husband, a few other coworkers and I were sitting at the table drinking and chatting, and somehow the conversation went to snoring spouses. No idea who or why started it, but we were all slightly tipsy. Someone asked me if my husband snores as well, and I said yeah, which is why we have separate bedrooms. Didn't think much of it. Susie's husband seemed interested in the idea and asked me a few questions, which I honestly replied to. Basically things I mentioned above. Today Susie called me, really angry, saying I was an a-hole for even mentioning that I have a separate bedroom. Saying things like, "Who does that? And you must be really unhappy, and stop pretending it makes you happy, you're just faking it," and so on. She was furious, pretty much crying and shouting at me. I was quite surprised and tried to understand what the hell happened. I guess I should have just disconnected, but this was so unlike her. Well, it turns out Susie snores a lot, and her husband loved the idea of having separate bedrooms and wanted to try it. Susie sees it as an ultimate end to their relationship, as disrespectful, as not something married couples should do. So now she blames me for introducing her husband to the idea and validating it with my lies. I haven't lied. I didn't think I did anything wrong at the time, but I do feel bad for her and wonder, am I really an a-hole here? Not the a-hole. It's not your fault that it doesn't fit in her perfect little image of what a marriage should look like. You are not the a-hole. Separate bedrooms have saved a lot of marriages. Susie is just pissed at her husband and taking it out on you. So, context. I, 25 female, am 8 weeks, 3 days pregnant, and have been keeping this secret from everyone except my sister-in-law, 28, for over a month now. I told her as soon as I found out, because she's the only one who knew we were trying. Anyway, I had been keeping it a secret so that I could reveal it to my parents with a cute gift on Christmas. Sister-in-law knows this plan. She informed me a couple of days ago that she is about 4 weeks pregnant, which I'm super excited about, don't get me wrong. She is married to my family's golden child, and they had the first grandbaby of the family 3 years ago. After her little one was born, my family immediately started asking when the next grandbaby was coming. I had mentioned to sister-in-law that I wanted her to wait until after Christmas to tell them, since I am further along than her and have had this moment planned for over a month. And honestly, it's only a week of waiting, which I think should be more than doable. Normally I wouldn't care about this kind of thing, but I'm kind of the black sheep of the family already, and my siblings are always seen as better than me, or more important. She had agreed that she would wait until after Christmas to tell my parents, so that I could have a moment where my family was excited for me and wasn't comparing me to any of my siblings. Well, today she texted me that she's decided to tell them tonight because they are visiting anyway. I'm kind of upset about this because now when I tell my parents, that rare moment of excitement that I've been waiting for will be overshadowed by the golden child announcing first. I was going to ask her not to do this today, as we had an agreement, but now I'm unsure. I don't know, I feel like I'm overreacting, but this genuinely hurts my feelings as she knows how excited I was to announce this pregnancy that my parents have been waiting 3 years for. The saddest thing about this post is you feeling that announcing your pregnancy will finally get their attention and approval. If your sister-in-law announcing her pregnancy means you won't get the approval and attention you crave, then there is a big problem with your family. Stop accepting the role of black sheep in your family. You deserve better. No a-holes. A while back, I, male 40s, dated a woman, female 30s, whose father, male 60s, was a nice enough person, but a bit overprotective of his adult daughter. After about a month of dating and without any reason to do so, he ran a full background check on me, including a credit check, without my knowledge or permission. It came back clean and my girlfriend told me about it immediately after the fact. I noticed the 5-point hit on my credit rating, but that wasn't a big deal. I was more peeved that someone ran a criminal and financial check on me without my knowledge or consent, but I decided to let it go to keep the peace. We broke up 3 months later and had little contact after the breakup. Approximately 2 months after we broke up, my now ex-girlfriend reached out to me. It turns out her father ran the background and credit checks through his work. He hired employees, so he had access to his company's system to run the checks. He digitally clicked that he had granted consent to the checks, but of course I had not done so, and he had no backbone. His company's internal audit department was giving him a hard time to provide the backup. She asked me to complete, retroactively date, sign, and email a form consenting to the checks to her. I was still a little peeved about the checks, so I declined to do so. She went nuts, and her father even called trying to explain his position. He was much nicer about it than her, but I still declined. Ultimately, the internal auditor from my ex's father's company called to follow up and determine what happened, and I told the auditor the entire true story. My ex's father lost his job. He was close to retirement, but I know it set him and his wife back a bit. She occasionally lashed out via text for a month after calling me an a-hole. It was a relatively minor inconvenience to my life, and it did cost him a lot. So I ask you, am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. It's illegal to run a check like this without someone's consent. Someone that is that prepared to bend the rules for their own benefit has probably done it more times before. Maybe this is the first time he's faced serious consequences for doing so, but this is an entitled person who had no issues breaking the rules for him to get his way.